Alright, so as a kid, I used to play this old Spider-Man 2 game on the GameCube, and holy Moses, was it not my favorite GameCube game. I literally spent hours, and I mean hours, swinging around that GameCube rendered New York City. It was a complete blast, and when this game, Marvel's Spider-Man, came out, it literally blew me away. It was a nostalgic trip, but on another level. Then Sony came out of nowhere and releases Spider-Man Miles Morales, which blew me away even harder. Man, what a time to be alive. So you play as Miles Morales, a Afro-Latin American who lives in Harlem, New York City. The story juggles a lot of tropes, mainly how big corporations and governments screw over the minority communities to make way for big business and white-owned establishments, and also housing. The game also briefly goes over the issue of police brutality in one particular scene. These are some heavy topics that the game has, and the way they integrate them into the story is so seamless. Not obvious at first, but after a second playthrough, one can certainly recognize them. For the most part, the story is the very definition of fanservice after fanservice. If I were to write a Spider-Man Miles Morales story, it would have turned out nearly exactly like the story in this game. The story starts out with a bang, then slows to a spider-like crawl, allowing you to take in the Christmas vibes of the city. From that point on, the game starts to slowly ramping up its intensity, emotional twists and turns start popping up, epic moments go from 0 to 100 real quick. Then the ending comes, and the ending has the purest form of emotional excitement. I walked away from this game with the idea that it was the most enjoyable storyline that I have ever had the chance to experience. It was like watching Toy Story as a kid for the first time. It was like watching the new movie on Disney Plus called Soul. Overall, the storyline of Miles Morales gets a solid 9.5 out of 10. So here it is, graphics. I am a fanatic when it comes to viewing graphics in any game. I would criticize a lot of games out there when it comes to the graphical design. My general opinion on the graphics of this game is that it is definitely next gen. Firstly, let's talk about the different graphical modes that this game offers. Being a PS5 title, it's a mandatory requirement for a lot of these games to have two modes, a performance mode and a fidelity mode. At least I think it is mandatory. The first mode in this game is called Performance Mode, where 60 FPS or higher is the targeted frame rate, with the expense of lowered resolution and lowered graphical fidelity. The other mode is Fidelity Mode, where the PS5 runs the game with additional lighting and visual details at pure 4K locked at 30 FPS with ray tracing enabled. This game also comes with a graphical mode which lies in between performance and fidelity, and the game calls it Performance RT Mode or Performance Ray Tracing Mode. This particular mode offers ray tracing at 60 FPS with some sacrifices such as lowered resolution, lowered graphical fidelity. For the most part, I don't quite notice any differences between the graphical settings other than frame rate, image resolution, and ray tracing, which means the developers really did a great job with creating these graphical modes for the game. I for one prefer Fidelity Mode. The image sharpness and ray tracing is just too good to pass up on. 30 FPS is a bummer, but when you're playing with a controller, 30 FPS is good enough. I mean, come on, 4K looks incredible. Unfortunately, my capture card is limited at a 1080p picture, so this video doesn't quite do the game justice. Graphically, this game is phenomenal. The story in the game takes place in winter during Christmas in New York City, and let me tell you something, this game captures the whole vibe of what New York City looks like during Christmas. I recently went to Manhattan during the Christmas times, and my god, this game captured the whole look and feel of Christmas in New York City. The way this game took advantage of the PS5's power to generate this vibe is certainly a technical feat. Textures in this game are incredibly detailed. Pair that with the crispy resolution of 4K and ray tracing, you get an image that looks like Pixar films. Absolutely outstanding. I give the graphics of this game a solid 9 out of 10. It's definitely next gen. Now for my favorite aspect about the game, the gameplay. You ever wanted to know what it would feel like to swing around New York City like Spider-Man? Well, let me tell you something. This is the game for you. Swinging around New York City in this game is so fluid, and it just feels so natural. controls are very simple, and in my opinion, they're very easy to master. Use the right trigger to swing across Manhattan and left stick to control direction, X to jump. Very simple. You could even do a dive and swing at the end of it to gain ultimate speed. And that thing he does where he propels himself forward, that's essentially my favorite move. And don't get me started on the move that gives him extra speed right here. And hold on, there's more. Check this out. Isn't that so damn cool? You could turn him into a Spider-Man missile with his powers. As for combat, there's only one aspect of it where I have a problem with. Every time he punches an enemy, it feels kinda soft. Like we can't get a sense of the impact when he punches someone. Sometimes you do when he does these power moves, but that might be an issue with sound design, to be honest. Like, punches sort of feel numb, if that makes any sense. But overall, aside from this, combat is solid. You have a set of gadgets you can use during combat, and you can even do finishers, which are really dope. This game doesn't really feel like Batman Arkham Knight when it comes to the combat, although it does seem like it to someone that hasn't played the game. The game comes with a healthy dose of combat combos at your disposal, which keeps the combat interesting. You are also given an added ability called Venom, which is essentially bioelectrical powers for our boy Miles Morales. You can send high voltages into your enemies in a snap of a finger. Personally, I do believe it is overpowered in the game, but I don't quite mind it at all. It's a very welcomed addition. Stealth, on the other hand, is pretty standard. Nothing amazing, just good. Miles Morales also has another ability that helps him greatly during stealth gameplay. However, just because it is sort of a spoiler, I don't really want to discuss it entirely. Stealth is basic in the game, very basic. You stay out of enemy sight, don't let enemies see you take out another bad guy because otherwise you'll have to start throwing hands. Despite stealth being pretty basic, it's not quite bad. It's simple, not complicated, easy to pick up, gives a nice added variety to the gameplay, and is another crucial aspect to the game, I feel. I would give the gameplay of Miles Morales Spider-Man a 9 out of 10. The game is certainly a highlight of my 2020. This game gave me so much nostalgia, epic moments, and it just felt like I watched a Pixar film. Graphically, it looked like a Pixar film. Now the question is, should you buy this game? Normally games nowadays don't quite have my full attention. I would play for 30 minutes and I'd get bored, and I don't play for another 3 days. However, this game is different. This game had me sitting down for hours and hours. I kept playing this game till I finished it. Then I played it again for a second time, then finished it again. So to answer the question of should you buy this game? Yes, you should definitely buy this game. It's so damn good. This game gets a solid 9.5 out of 10 in my books. Solid game. Yeah, solid. Thank you guys for watching this video all the way to the end. I love you all, some more than most. You know who you are. This is Jeff Cloudy, signing out.
Jared, open up the lines. I want to hear from those who agree with me. Jared, I said open up the lines. What do you mean they're open? Well, something must be wrong. Folks, we're having technical difficulties. Please stand by.